the home of the do-it-yourself trucker. When everything goes wrong, you got a Redneckanize. So to dive into that, we were just hitting it up here. And like I said, the hours of service, there's an enforcement blitz coming up here. It says nation biggest trucker enforcement blitz is a week away. And here's a cheat sheet to get you ready on the cdllife.com website. And this article was published on April 1st. It says Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, the CVSA, is gearing up for a major 72-hour truck inspection effort in just a few weeks. The CVSA's International Road Check will take place on May 4th through the 6th throughout the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Law enforcement agencies will conduct tens of thousands of commercial motor vehicle inspections during the 3-day effort. It says during this year's enforcement effort, inspections will be paying extra attention to two areas: hours of service violations and lighting violations. According to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, the lighting violation, lamp inoperable, Title 49 Code of the Federal Regulation 393.9, was the number one violation in fiscal 2020, accounting for approximately 12.24% of all vehicle violations discovered in that area. And during last year's International Road Check, the top driver out of service violation category in North America was hours of service, accounting for 34.7% of all driver out of service conditions, the CVSA said. So what it boils down to, if anybody out there, if you ever have never come up to one of these things, remember, it's not just the hours of service that they can check for that day. They'll go back as long as you have it. If you have a logbook that has 30 days in it, they can go back and double check all those days. They can audit the whole shebang. They're technically only supposed to get you for the last 7 days because that reflects your week. But I've heard drivers say that they've been busted for being out of service or out of over hours 2 weeks ago when they got inspected. And, it all depends. And a lot of times what it is that you don't fight it. So if you don't fight it, they're still going to write it up. The other thing is that they're going to give you an inspection. Now, it hurts you worse when you get an inspection and they give you those violations. Now, if you were to get a violation with no inspection, then it's just a ticket and you can fight it or not fight it. But a lot of times that CVSA score that they give you or the CSA score that they give you, it's only on violations or on inspections. I'm sorry. If you have an inspection and you have a violation under that inspection, that reflects on the CSA. And I think that they're cracking down on that a little harder to where they're not going to do that as much. But the problem that I've seen is that the officers that are doing the inspections don't know the rules. They know the rules. They know that you're violating the hours of service, but what they don't understand is how you can fight it and you can't fight it. You can't fight it on an inspection. It's not going to go away. Okay. But if you have just a ticket, then you can always, fight. Tickets are always fightable. So, but the inspection, they're not going to be able to fight those. So just remember that. And so like right now is the time to just start going, if you haven't gone legal, go legal now, because if you've got the logbook in your truck, they're going to see it. And they're going to go. Now, if you run electronic logs, of course, you shouldn't be in violation. But what they usually do is they can punch up the little code on the logbook, and it'll, however far they want to go back, they can go back. So just know that it's not just that day. Don't think that just because you're not out of service that day, So a lot of the other things is, of course, the brakes and the coupling devices and all that. And it says here on brakes, it says checking for missing, non-functioning, loose, contaminated or cracked parts on the brake system. Check for S-cam flip over. Be alert of audible air leaks around brake components and lines. Check the slack adjusters are the same length from center of S-cam to center of clevis pin, and the air chambers are on each axle are the same size. Ensure the air system maintains air pressure between 90 and 100 psi. It says inspect for non-manufactured holes, rust holes, holes created by rubbing or frictions, and broken springs in the spring brake housing section of the parking brakes. That's a big one too, because it's really easy to see. It's and what they're talking about is that little spring that connects the brakes on the inside. You can just see it. It's right inside there, and they can get broke pretty easy because, like I said, it's just right there. It's exposed. So, and it says here, measure push rod travel, inspect required brake system warning devices such as ABS malfunction lamps, low air pressure warning devices, inspect tractor protection system, including the bleed back system on the trailer, ensure the breakaway system is operable on the trailer. And basically what this boils down to is that, if you're not getting your brakes checked on a regular basis, you need to get them checked. And it's always a good idea to get the brakes checked when right before this, if you're going to be out. A lot of drivers that I talk to, they say, that's a good time. Just take a long weekend. Just take some time off. And I agree. Especially if you travel in those areas that are going to have this stuff going on, because some of the states just don't get involved with it. A lot of states that don't usually get out there and enforce, sometimes they'll set up some places, especially in their high traffic areas. So it's always good to double check. It says coupling devices, safety devices. It says full trailers, converter, dolly. It says check the safety devices, chain, wiring, rope for sufficient length. Missing components and improper repairs to the device are incapable to secure attachment. On the lower fifth wheel, check for unsecured mounting to the frame or any missing or damaged parts in any visible space between the upper and lower fifth wheel plates. Verify that the locking jaws are around the shank and not the head of the kingpin, and that the release lever is seated properly and the safety latch is engaged. We always check that on a pre-trip when you're hooking up a trailer, is you climb under and you make sure that it's going across, and when you see it going across the latch, make sure you see the bottom of the kingpin where it's up in the joint, in the little joint area. That's always a good spot. You're always looking, but sometimes you're just looking to check. You're not really looking. So that kind of thing is what they're looking for. If you could see it go across, but then you look down, and you can't see the bottom of the kingpin underneath the latch. Well, then you're not all the way under it, or it's not seated properly. So that's what you always want to check out for. And the other thing is making sure that the handle. What they tell you in the video, you see it a lot, is to push on the handle, make sure it's all the way in. And so that's always a good thing. I always like trying to hit it maybe a little harder than I should, just to make sure I hear that, that going right in. That's what you always want to look for. You don't want to hit it too hard to where you don't feel it at all. You want to hit it just hard enough to where you can feel it hit, but then you can feel it lock. And that's what you want to do. And then when you get out and check, that's what you double check that. It says check the upper fifth wheel for any damage to the weight-bearing plate. It says such as cracks, loose or missing bolts on the trailer on the sliding fifth wheel. It says check for improper engagement of locking mechanism. The teeth are fully engaged on the railing. It says also check for worn or missing parts. Ensure that the position does not allow the tractor frame rails to contact with the landing gear during turns. Check for damaged or missing fore and aft stops. So, I always thought it was weird about the landing gear. We always want to make sure we don't want to hit it because we don't want to tear nothing up. But a lot of trailers, sometimes if you're pulling a different trailer, you don't really know for sure. So you always want to double check that. And some instances, if you have a trailer that might have some kind of short landing gear on it where it's not going to give you a lot of room, especially if you have a bigger tractor that may have an extra space in between the frame and the back axle. If you're able to take the mud flaps off, take them off, because that will ensure that it's going to clear even more. That way you're not going to, because you don't have to have mud flaps on the tractor drive tires in the back like that unless you're bobtailing. So you don't have to have the mud flaps directly back there. And that's another thing. I think a lot of law enforcement, they don't know that. They want to see mud flaps. They like seeing mud flaps, but you don't have to have them on the truck while you're hooked to a trailer. It's not required. You have to have them on the very rear, which is the trailer. And then when you unhook, then you have to have them on the tractor, because that's the very rear. That's what it is, the very rear of the truck. So remember that. And if you get into a problem, you can take them off. That way, if you have any kind of problems with it clearing, you don't have to worry about that. So, and that's just kind of like keeping things from getting messed up or damaged. But, they say here they want to check for that, and they want to make sure you can clear. And if you can't clear, I guess it's a violation. I'm not real sure. So it says fuel and exhaust systems. Check for fuel tanks or falling conditions, loose mountings, leaks, and other conditions. Loose or missing caps are signs of leaking fuel below the tanks. For exhaust systems, check the following: unsecure mounting, leaks beneath the cab, exhaust system components in contact with electrical wiring or brake lines and hoses, and excessive carbon deposits around the seams and clamps. Like I said, they don't like exhaust leaks. They don't like it at all. It doesn't even matter if you run a straight pipe or nothing. You got to have whatever pipes are on there. You got to have them. Can't have any holes in them. So just double check all that stuff. The big thing is the flex hose. If you have any flex hose on the it's over time, those are the first ones to go, and you don't see it because it's a small. The cracks are in the joints, And what they do is they check for any kind of, if it gets dirty around there, then you can see it, and they can tell that. And a lot of these fancy ones, they got detections and all that stuff like that, so they can go around checking while the truck's running. They go back there and look and all that. So check for that leaking exhaust. But you know, it amazes me. I see it. I don't know if y'all see it or not. I see out there, there's all kinds of like barely hanging on fuel tanks. You know, the mufflers and stuff that, you know, barely hanging on or bent or leaning. You know, they're in the back all nice and tall and they're kind of going a different direction or whatever. It amazes me those places, those trucks don't get shut down as often as they probably should be. So, you know, I hope we get it taken care of. But, you know, that's the only reason why I kind of like the enforcement stuff, because, you know, you go tell the driver and he you know, mind your own business. That's what they say, you know, and then we get pissed off at each other when, you know, when things come down the line where we want to try to make things better, but then there's tons of drivers out there that don't care about making the system better. They just want to milk it for all they can and go to the next one. That's what they do. So it says other checklist things, of course, is lighting, secure your cargo, the frame, and checking the body of the trailer. You know, that's a big deal. You know, if we drop and hook trailers all the time, a lot of times we pick things up that's got holes or some kind of defective parts on the trailers, and we want to check that stuff and we want to make sure it's good to go. Cargo securement, if you run flatbed, you know, you can run into a lot of problems with that, because there are restrictions on that stuff. And vans, don't get shy. If you run van out there, you know, don't think just because it's locked up in the trailer they can't check. It's still got there's certain things that still have to be secured. The new rule that came down about 5 or 6 years ago, when they had to, it doesn't even matter if you're hauling liquid in a container. And I think the container just has to be more than 500 pounds. If it's a heavy, like one of those large 4x4 liquid containers, those have to be properly secured, and you have to have a tanker endorsement to haul that stuff. And then, you know, anything else, hazardous material, that's got to be secured. You know, a lot of guys out there, they run LTL, and a little bit of hazmat that can throw your whole thing out of whack if it's not properly secured inside that trailer. You know, so and you know, hey, they may get up there and check. You never know. It says steering. Of course, that's part of our pre-trip is to look out for the steering. And then, like I said, the lighting, man, checking the lights. It says lights were out, the lights out, and that to me, that's like all the lights. Like you're supposed to have 3 in the middle and one on each side. If one of those ones in the middle is out, that's violation. They're gonna get you for that every time. You know, having your parking lights on each side, your turn signals and your parking lights. Even though you got these bright headlights, you still got to have the amber lights on the side. So you still got to have that. You just got to, and you're supposed to have one somewhere on the tractor, in the middle, you know, either on the fairing or on the side. Sometimes a lot of these newer trucks, they put them up by the door, and then you got to have the ones in the back on the tractor working. They got to be working. Even though you're hooked to a trailer, the lights on the truck still have to work, brake lights and all. And then of course your turn signals, the ones in the middle, the ones in the back. You know, a lot of times we get trailer lights going out, and then we don't feel like climbing up there. You know, the biggest ones that go out on the top of the vans are the ones on the top corners. They got to be working. So you got to check all that and make sure it's going good. Lights are a big deal. I hope that drivers out there are checking their lights, because you see a lot of guys out there running with their high beams, and the reason why they're running their high beams is because one of their low beams is out, and they don't want to be, you know, pulled over for having a headlight out, and so they put their high beams on thinking they'll get away with it. I see it. I catch it all the time. So I don't know if the cops don't see it or not. I don't know. And the last on the list was, of course, tires, wheels, and rims and hubs. Check for proper inflation, cuts and bulges, groove tires, steering axle, tread wear, major tread groove depth, inspect sidewalls and proper repairs, expose fabric and cord, contact any part of the vehicle, tire markings, excluding it from using as a steering axle. You know, that's another thing too. If you try to pass off a tire that's not supposed to be, if you're trying to put a drive tire on a steer axle, you know, they're going to catch it. You know, and you'll see. I mean, if you've been driving for a while, you can tell that which tire by looking at the tire, but it's got it written on there what it's supposed to be. So make sure that even though you can tell, always try to make sure it has it written on it, and especially with the drive tires as well. A lot of times, what we do as drivers, even owner operators, they might buy all position tires, and a lot of drivers, you know, they say they get better life out of running steer tires on their drive axle, they're just designed to last longer. So they say they get, a good fuel mileage and long time wear for that. I haven't really dealt with it that much, to be honest with you, so I don't know. But maybe some guys out there do, and it's all good, because it's the steer axle that's the biggest. That's because you can't. It's one of those things. There's 1, 2, 3. You got steer axles, you got steer tires, you got drive tires, and you got trailer tires. You can't put trailer tires on any other axle but the trailer tires for the trailer. Your drives can be anywhere on the drive axle and the trailer. Your steers, pretty much all position tires. They can go anywhere. So it's kind of like, just think of it as back to front, just kind of like setting the table. The steer tires can be used on any axle. The trailer tires can only be used on the trailer axles. So you can't move them up. Just remember, you can't move them up. You can't move a tire up to the next axle. You can only move them back. So that's a good rule of thumb. And of course, always checking the hubs for lubricant leaks, missing caps and plugs, misalignment and positioning, and damaged, worn, or missing parts. Check for the rims, for their cracked or bent. A lot of times a wheel on the steer, I've seen it where it'll right there on the lug hole, right there it'll just a small little crack. So you might see it sometimes where you see a little black line. You need to get in there and rub it and make sure that line, because sometimes it's just like stray grease somewhere, some kind of road grime, and something got attached to it and it looks like a crack. But you get in there and rub it and make sure it's off, make sure it's gone, and that way it's not a crack. But cracks are pretty easy to see if you're running aluminum wheels. Steel is a little harder. Sometimes the rust covers them up, so you need to make sure you look for that. They'll be looking, because it's one of the big things. Of course, loose or damaged lug nuts. Lug nuts can get cracked, doesn't matter where. Elongated stud holes have cracks across spokes, and in the web area, that's what I was talking about, have evidence of slippage in the clamp areas. So those are the things that they're looking for on the road inspection. Like I said, that's going to be, what did it say, the May 4th? Slide back up here and double check. May 4th through May 6th, 2021. So check that, mark that on your calendars. Maybe that's a good time to take some time off. You never know. But that's what they'll be looking for on that. And I want everybody to stay safe and legal. And that's the big thing, is making sure that they don't shut you down, because time and money, that's what it's about, right? So check that out. And like I said, check out Trucker Tools, truckertools.com. Check out our website, redneckanize.com. Check our Facebook page, Twitter. Twitter is at Redneckanize 2012. Our Facebook is you go search Redneckanize or redneckanize.com. We got links to all of our social media on our website, and of course we got YouTube videos on our YouTube channel. We appreciate everybody for signing up for that and subscribing to our YouTube channel. We've been getting some great feedback on that. We really appreciate everybody's help to getting that going, and we want to keep it going through, and we're going to keep posting videos. We're going to keep doing this. Thanks to Unplug Radio for letting us have this Sunday night where we can do a podcast and just get the message out there to drivers. And we appreciate everything that everybody's doing for us out there. So we're going to step away, take a little break. We'll be right back. All right, now, stay safe.